Hello, I'm Minister Duff, and this is Freedom Wings Ministries Corporation. I am the founder, and we've been going through a series of Genesis, and we're left off at chapter 41, so that's where we're going to start today. And it talks about the Pharaoh using Joseph to interpret his dreams. He has these dreams about, excuse me, he has these dreams about these fattened animals that come out of the river, and then follows thin animals, and they eat the fattened animals, but they come in a series of 7 days. And so the Pharaoh says, I don't understand this, and he goes to let's say he goes to the head overseers that would be charged with being able to interpret these dreams. And so none of them can interpret it. So he goes to Joseph, as he had heard that Joseph could interpret things. And so Joseph says, well, it's 7, the 7 years will equal a famine for 7 years. The 7 days mean 7 years. Sorry about that. The 7 days mean 7 years. And there will be a famine for that time. So let us read, and we'll see how the story goes. All right. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fattished, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-flavored, favished is what it says. Well-favished and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. One stalk, rank and good. So we see 7 ears of corn coming up. So we have the animals that come out of the river that are well fed and taken care of and fattened. And then we have the second animals that come out of the river, which are famished and ill-nourished. And they stand by the well-nourished and they eat them. And then we have this 7 ears of corn. Again, 7, 7, 7. And when we look back in the beginning of Genesis, we see that the Lord created everything in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. So there's a special little number going on in the Bible here in Genesis, and that's 7. And what we see here is Joseph interprets the dreams, the number 7 days, as 7 years of famine. So let's read number 6 in Genesis 41. And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted. Oh, let me read that again. And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So now we see the corn is being eaten by 7 thin ears, which came up from the west winds, which came up from the east winds, which came up from the east winds. I'm gonna read number 5, and we'll go back into 6, because I kind of started talking in that. But it says number 5, Genesis 41. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon the stalk, rank and good. And this is number 6 now. And behold, 7 thin airs, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. Number 7 now. And the 7 thin airs devoured the 7 rank and full airs. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all magicians of Egypt and all the wise men. Therefore, and the Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them into Pharaoh. So we see the magicians and the wise men that are in charge of stuff like this, interpreting the dreams, and they can't figure it out. So this is where we get into Joseph. So number 9. Wait a second. No, it's number 8. Sorry, my bad. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men. Therefore the Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto the Pharaoh. Number 9 now. Then spake the chief butler unto the Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put him inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. Both me and the chief baker. So it seems that Joseph is kind of telling this story a little bit, because we're going to see where he goes to Joseph, and he betroths Joseph. Is more of a, Joseph's in the jail, and we saw that a little bit earlier in Genesis. Joseph's in the jail, and so the Pharaoh calls upon Joseph as he heard that he can interpret these dreams, and the wise men and the other servants of him cannot. But it says in that what we just read that he was ill-favored to his servants. He did not, he did not treat them as the way they should be, for they were just mere peasants to the Pharaoh. But that changes with Joseph. Let's see. Number 10. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief. So Joseph is in the captain's house of the guards for the jail, and he's with the head baker too. So let's see, these are the ones that were taken upon for the dream interpret. And so let's see, number 11. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of this dream, of his dream. So we see Joseph and the baker dreaming a dream after the Pharaoh's dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard, and who told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. So there's a young man that's a servant that knows how to interpret these dreams that Joseph and the baker had, on top of based after the dreams that the Pharaoh had. Now, so number 13. And it came to pass, he interpreted to us, so it was me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. The Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and charged his raiment, and came into Pharaoh. So let's see. I might have been a little confused. All right, so I was a little confused. All right. So the wise men and the magicians and those said to interpret the dream get imprisoned and hung, and because they can't interpret this dream. Because it says that that they're hanged. It says one of them is hanged and the other is imprisoned. But the Pharaoh calls Joseph because he hears that Joseph can interpret these dreams. So number 15 says, "And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say to thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it." So the Pharaoh is speaking to Joseph now and saying that, "I understand that you can interpret my dream. How is it that we get this interpreted?" So, oops, my bad, I'm holding the cell phone. Alright, anyway, I usually use a webcam, but I gotta work out some issues with my computer. So, I'm using my phone. So, anyway, and Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the brink of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine fastest and well favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and leanest, such as never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. I'm going to read that again. It says, And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. Such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. So, I wonder what that Pharaoh was really thinking on that. For badness. I gotta read it again. Number 19. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. Such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. So, the Pharaoh was saying, I've never seen such ill-fed and famished animals before. And here they come up out of this river and they eat these well-fed, good-nourished creatures that have come out of the river before them. And so what he's saying is, I've never seen such sick animals before. I've never seen this. And I don't know what it means is what he's telling Joseph. And so, number 18, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine fleshed and well favored, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after him, poor and very ill flavored, and lean fleshed, such as I never saw in the land of Egypt for badness. Okay, so I kind of repeated a little bit. Well, nobody's perfect, right? So anyway, so starting off on the new part of where we left off it's chapter 41, number 20. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 of kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning, so I awoke. They were still ill-favored at the beginning, so I awoke. So, what is it that we see in that section? The Pharaoh was saying, this is very weird, this is very strange. They ate each other. The ill-famished ate the well-famished. Words, I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's been a while since I've done a reading. So anyway, so the good fed animals that came out of the river are being fed on by the ill by the unhealthy, we'll simplify it, the unhealthy animals. And then the Pharaoh says, but even though they ate the healthy animals, they still seem to be unhealthy animals to me. I can't figure this out. And he's talking to Joseph. And so we'll do 21. We'll do 21. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 heirs came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 heirs withered, thin, and blasted, with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin heirs devoured the 7 good heirs. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me, who could declare it to me. So, taking a slight pause again. Now we have the heirs of, I think it was corn, or the heirs of, well, these plant heirs come up, and they get devoured by these non-healthy plant heirs. So we see the animals, and we see the grains and the corns and all that kind of stock. They devour each other. And yet, even though the unhealthy devour the healthy, they are unable to become healthy themselves. And the Pharaoh says, I don't understand this. It's kind of repeated a little bit, but, anyway. So let's see now. We have, number 25. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. Then the 7 good kin are 7 years. 7 years, there we go, there's the 7 years. All right, I lost my spot there. All right, the good shrewd Pharaoh, I'm going to read that again. Number 25. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kin are 7 years, and the 7 good heirs are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kin that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. 7 years of famine. So 7, 7, 7, 7. We keep seeing 7 repeat. The Lord, in the beginning of Genesis, worked for 6 days and rested on the 7th. Now this is a dream in conjunction with the number 7 for years and days. In the beginning it's days. Then when Joseph interprets the dream, he says it's 7 years of famine. Number 28. This is the thin which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he swilleth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come, number 29 out of number 4, chapter 41, Genesis 29. Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. So the first 7, as the animals were well fed, the first 7 is good years of great stock in Egypt. And the stock meaning well fed grains and good animals and nourishment, and they're just an overabundance of wealthy good in the land of Egypt. But we move on to the next 7, which is number 30. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the famine shall consume the land. So we have there it is. As far as Joseph says, you're going to have the 7 good years. You're going to have the 7 bad years. The dream is, he says the dream is 1. The number 7 with the well-fed animals, and the number 7 with the ill-fed animals, and the number 7 with the good grain and stock, and the number 7 with the bad grain and stock. It's all years. The days are equaling up to years, and that's what God showed him in the dream, that there was going to be a famine. There's going to be good wealth for 7 years, and there's going to be a famine for 7. And let's see, number 32. And for that the dream was dubbed unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will surely bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. So we say, Joseph says, send your agents, your warriors, your officers, your best known to the land of Egypt for guarding and taking care of the plentiful years, so that in the ill plentiful years they have what they need to survive. Basically what they're saying. What Joseph is saying this is what the dream means, and this is what I see. It all is one, and I feel that you need to send people to manage things within the good years, so that in the bad years you have enough. Number 38. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such as one as this is a man whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they carried before him. Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. So Joseph, in the wisdom of being able to interpret the dream, the Pharaoh says, you're going to be my man, my main manager of Egypt. So we have what we need in the famished years. Let me see now. Number 43. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Number 44. Chapter 41, number 44 is where I am now. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zepanathapena, and he gave him to wife as Asenath, and he gave to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plentiful years the earth brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food, and the 7 years number 48, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. So he's doing what the Pharaoh asked. He's and what God showed him. He's gathering in the plentiful years, preparing for the years, the 7 years of the famine. 49. And Joseph gathered corn and the sand of the sea very much until he left numbering it, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. That's what it's MANAS-CHR, Manasseh. For God said, He has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called the Ephraim. The name of the second called he Ephraim. For God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plentifulness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of death began to come according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith you do. Number 56 in chapter 41, Genesis. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came unto Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all the land. So Joseph gathered all the food and everything, knowing that this dream that the Pharaoh had seen and had asked Joseph for his assistance. Joseph said, no, there's going to be 7 good years and 7 bad years. And so the Pharaoh says, I send you to manage the good years so that we may have in the bad years. And Joseph does that. And we see here, it was throughout the whole world that there was the famine. And so everybody came to Joseph and Egypt because they had saved all the food that was needed to survive the famine. And they were able to sell it to support Egypt. And so that's Genesis chapter 41. And, I hope you understand what I'm trying to. I like to simplify the story as best I can. It's just not the story, it's the word of God, which is the truth. But, so we say, Dear Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for sharing this wonderful historical way upon which you've brought us life throughout this Genesis, and showing us how things were back in the old days in Egypt, and how good things can come from dreams that you portray on us. You portray the dreams onto us. So we thank you, and we hope that you keep clarifying the word for us. Keep clarifying the word for us, as we may have a plentiful life ourselves within you, your Son, Jesus, as you brought. And all three. You are all three, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Or the Spirit. Some people say Spirit. Some people say Holy Ghost. So I ask, Lord, that everyone comes to you that may be watching this thing, really, they seek clarification within themselves as to who they are as your children. That is my dream for this Bible study. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I'm just saying, Lord, how you want me to interpret things and simplify this Bible for people who need simplification. And just even for myself, going through, looking at things differently. And so I say to anyone who's watching this, that may be coming, my wish, Lord, is that they become informed of the Bible in an understanding. It's the King James. And so I want people to be able to understand how I'm simplifying it, Lord. So you guys out there, let me know. No, let's see. Simplifications within the stories. Don't worry about names. Don't worry about anything that you can't understand. Pray about what you can understand, and God will show you what he's referring to. Everybody interprets these Bible stories in their own way because it's their connection to God. It's God speaking to us. And we take it as we see fit within our lives as Christians. God will tell everyone different things, different meanings throughout the Bible itself, because we all have different intimate relationships with the Lord. Think about that. God will, I always call him the Lord, but as God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. God, how is your relationship with him? Through the Word. How is your relationship with God? Through the Word. What does he speak onto your heart? I say this quite a bit, but what does the Lord speak unto your heart throughout the readings? How can you understand this or not understand this? Are you someone that's gone to jail? Are you someone that is just struggling and doesn't know what to do? See, it says the seven years were good, 7 years were bad. Prepare for the 7 years that are bad with the 7 years that are good. Prepare for the 7 years that are bad with the 7 years that are good in this dream that the Pharaoh has interpreted in Genesis chapter 41. So how do you prepare? How do you as a Christian show your love to the Lord? Think about it there. How do you as a Christian show your love to the Lord? Many blessings, my friends. Many blessings.